Well, it's official. I'm starting to love Apple and I hate it. I think that I pretty much have a universal shared experience with everybody else who has bought one of these new M1s or the M1 Pros or the M1 Maxes. So a few of these things should sound pretty familiar. The performance is nuts. The upgrade from last year in the Intel generation is ridiculous, blah, 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 blah. Now, to be fair, I have had a pretty cautious Apple experience leading up to the most recent generations on some of their products. I shared a lot of the same frustrations that a lot of people did. One of them was that you had a company worth literally trillions of dollars, and yet they didn't seem to be innovating in any particular way. And in some ways, they seem to be taking a back step. And that really rubbed me the wrong way, because I think if you're gonna have that much money, fine, but do something with it. You know, change the world in a beneficial way, make progress in a specific field. And that's not something I felt like they used to be doing. And now they seem to have decided to do it. So good for you, Apple. You've done what you were supposed to do, 10 years ago. It seems that they used to be and still sort of are perfectly content to show up every year with a slightly changed product and collect a paycheck from their most loyal followers, especially with their phone series. That's definitely not progressing a ton, at least not leaps and bounds like the laptops recently have. They also for a long time seem to be getting more and more stubborn with their design choices. Like this laptop right here, this 13-inch Intel MacBook Pro has 2 ports on it, which is ridiculous. And one of them you need for charging. That's just stupid, and I'm an idiot for buying this particular generation of MacBook. Now, at that point, Apple hate was probably at its highest, and it was, I think, pretty well deserved. Like, you had a company that wasn't innovating. In fact, in a lot of design choices, they were stepping backwards, and people didn't like that, and I think that's totally fair, especially when you ask a premium price like Apple is asking. Then they slowly rolled out some changes to some products that made them, in my opinion, significantly better. I think the first product that really stood out to me as actually feeling like innovation, actually feeling like the future, actually feeling like a high-tech product was the iPad Pros. With those like ProMotion, like high refresh rate displays, the crazy thin design of those things, I was just totally enamored with the design choice and with the ability of Apple to create such a device when every company seemed to be far, far behind. And now they've done it with their laptop. Now, a slight offset to the laptop thing. One thing that they came out with was the AirPod Max. While in itself is a pretty cool tech headphone, it doesn't really sound the best for the money, I don't think, but it definitely has many more features than just about any other headphone at that price category. And it does those features really well, but it actually allowed for something that was, I think, very, very cool to enter sort of the mainstream, and that was actually going to be Dolby Atmos. The weird part about this is that Dolby Atmos isn't an Apple thing, but Apple really allowed the gateway to be open, sort of the floodgates to be lifted for that to come to a lot of people. And now all of a sudden I have people who do not care about audio at all talking to me about Dolby Atmos music, which is very cool to see the interest in audio. But interestingly enough, this doesn't just affect normal people listening to music. Actually, since Apple announced that they would be playing Dolby Atmos on Apple Music, a lot of studios have actually converted to a Dolby mastering process, which is not an easy transition to make. One, the software costs a bit of money, but two, you actually need a speaker system that can support the Dolby Atmos, and that is very, very expensive. So I felt that it was actually really able to shake up the industry on multiple forms, not just users, but also professionals, the people making music. For example, this is Dave Way, and he is a 2-time Grammy-winning audio engineer, and I was lucky enough to sit in as part of the Dolby mastering process from one of Jonathan Morrison's songs, which is going to be Jump First. I'll link that down below. That song's a lot of fun and had an incredible amount of talented people working on it. It was really crazy to experience, actually. Now, Dave has reconstructed this whole studio by adding speakers, changing positions, and software to work with the Dolby Atmos workflow. I think he was actually one of the earlier adopters too. And obviously he isn't the only one doing this. Dolby has really created a foundation for this, but I feel like Apple is largely responsible for it being more broadly adopted and then kind of really mainstreamified on the user end of things. And I give Apple full credit for kind of allowing that to happen. They were really the gatekeepers for that situation. So that was very cool, but I do think that the latest thing to impress me was this M1 Pro. Apple users have a tendency to bloviate performance, if you guys haven't noticed, And so I was pretty skeptical going into this, especially talking to my friend Doug, who's like a kind of an Apple fanboy a little bit for the computers at least. And I gotta say, I actually think the hype was justified. This thing is ridiculous. I work with Premiere Pro with footage like this, and this thing is just tearing through that footage without skipping a beat, which as a base model 16-inch is very impressive. In fact, the timeline performance on this machine is better than my $5,000 PC. And that has 3090 in it, 64 gigs of RAM, 5950X. It is a really good computer, but this is just a little bit better. Now, what's interesting about this is not just the performance gains, but I feel like sort of a moving sentiment that I've seen in the broader tech community is the appreciation that Apple is actually kind of listening to their customers, which is weird because they're so successful despite really not doing this. Like, everybody's been asking for more ports, better battery life, etc. And yet they just refuse to do it up until this generation. And now I'm sitting here like everybody else saying, thanks, Apple, like, I appreciate it. Okay, so I do have two minor gripes. One of them is not even Apple related. Now, in Premiere Pro, for whatever reason, on the Mac, the ingested footage is brighter than on the PC. It should be, it's the same Premiere Pro version, it's the same footage, it's the same LUT, but for whatever reason, it's about 10% brighter on the Mac and also with a little bit less contrast. I did make sure to check ingest settings, HDR standards, color gamuts, color profiles, and it's all exactly the same. But for whatever reason, it is brighter on the Mac than it is the PC. There's also this weird thing with color where when the LUT is applied, the color starts to degrade a little bit on the Mac and it doesn't degrade at all on the PC. Now, the color thing could be explained by the fact that the LUT was created in Windows and not on Mac, and therefore it doesn't quite play perfectly with the Mac system. That could be one reason. But the other weird thing is, like, if I export a project in Premiere Pro on the PC and take that exported file over to this, it looks like it does on the PC. So it's only like the stock log footage that I first ingest, and then when there's a LUT applied to it that I have issues. The other gripe has to do with the Logitech MX Master. Logitech, why are you using standard USB? Use USB-C, please. Like, I'd like to use the non-Bluetooth and use the wireless dongle that they have because the latency is a lot better, but I can't because it's, not USB-C. And it's extra weird because I feel like this is one of the most common mice to buy outside of the kind of magic mouse that Apple has, which is completely useless. Just create a Mac version. Okay, so in conclusion, the performance, as you've been hearing, I'm sure, is ridiculous. No surprises there. That's kind of why I'm not even bothering putting performance metrics up, because we've all seen them. The performance for the money is preposterous. It's just about the best value proposition of any computer anywhere on the market today. I guess some last closing statements. The build is Apple, so it's good. I like the new keyboard layout that they have. The notch has been relatively unnoticed by me, though it really irritates some, but I feel like in day-to-day use, you don't really notice it that much. And then the last thing, and perhaps the most impressive thing, actually two things, is battery life and the screen. Holy crap, the screen is ridiculous. Now, what I was really waiting for, though I did decide to move the timeline up a little bit for it, was the iMac Pro. I was super excited for that. Whenever that comes out, if it has a display like this, just bigger, and with the M1 Pro or M1 Max in it, I'm gonna buy that thing like immediately. I'm super pumped about that one. I'm not a huge laptop user, so when I get that desktop, I think that's gonna be like just perfect for my particular use case. So yeah, overall performance, ridiculous. There's not much else to say. All right, guys, thanks a lot for watching. Till the next video, my name's Josh, signing off. Peace.